One game of finals hoops on a Thursday night. No Levy today. We got my boy Zach Folkman, friend of the pod. Zach, say hi. Don't wave people for the audio.
Oh, hey, happy to be
Amazing.
here. Excited to be here.
Amazing. We get into a Pacers, giant Pacers win, forcing a game seven. My name is Shlomo Stark, and this is the daily basketball recap. Zach,
Hey, how we doing?
what is up? What a game.
What a game.
Uh, I got to watch it. I wasn't gonna wake up, but then I just woke up and I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna watch this game." It was amazing. I have to tell you. So let's just do a quick recap and then I'll get your thoughts. Indiana wins 108 to 91. Heading into this game, I think the entire world, myself and this podcast included, was drinking Thunder Kool-Aid and saying Thunder in six, especially given it was Shams made it sound like Tyrese Haliburton was going to be hopping on one leg in this game and basically just be like, you know, I don't even know, just like as if one of his calves just didn't work. That was not the case. He looked spry and good as ever. He played amazing. The Pacers they've just done this time and time and time again this season, which is when everyone counts them out, they show up in a big way. The Thunder played their worst defensive game of the entire season. Um, Lou Dort and Alex Caruso, who have typically been awesome on defense, did nothing. Jalen Williams, who was coming off a 40-point game, had a plus minus of minus 40, which is the worst plus minus in finals history since they started keeping those stats. And nobody on the Pacers scored more than 20 points. Zach, your thoughts on this game?
First of all, it's just so good for basketball. Like, just so good for basketball. I mean, I think you and I feel like we did. I think that we watched the last finals game seven together back in 2016. I think.
We didn't. I was in the army.
Where was it?
We watched 2013 together.
Oh, 2013. All right. But either
I,
way,
I think we
this
watched
is
it at Leon Jacobowicz's house. Shout out to Leon Jacobowitz.
love
Um,
that. But anyways, I'm just saying like this is the first finals game seven since the greatest game in NBA history, you
I think
know?
his
And
last three
it's
minutes it was actually a pretty bad game, but the game,
but when you look at it overall, you'll say that's the greatest
yes,
game in NBA history because of those
impact wise,
last 3 minutes. Okay. But what happened because of that is every NBA final since then hasn't lived up to it, because you're always just like, okay, this was good, but it wasn't the 2016 finals. And then for sure, every final since 2020 has just been horrible, and no one's enjoyed watching any of them and just felt like a waste of time. And finally, we have the perfect setup for a finals game seven. You know, it's it's it wasn't a 3-0 and then they come back, which some people think is more intense, but I personally don't like it because it just there's something about each team taking a game after a game after a game after a game that really makes this game seven feel like no one has the momentum. There's no momentum. It can go either way. Both teams showed that they can be the favorite, they can thrive as the underdog, they can lose it in 1 second, they can gain it back. And I wouldn't be able to make a real legitimate prediction for who's going to win this game. And I think that that's so exciting.
yeah, it's a rock fight. And you know what the total score the total score of all of the entire finals has been, like meaning the margin?
Right. It's got to be
The
within a couple of points.
Thunder up five.
Right.
Like if they that's like it's as close as it gets.
As close as it gets. And on top of that, it's two teams that waited and didn't freak out and built their team and let their guys develop chemistry. And now whichever team wins, we get to be happy for them. There's
Correct.
no annoying villainous super team that's going to potentially win and you have to be annoyed. Like no matter what, we will be happy for somebody for doing things the right way.
Correct. And Doc Rivers made this point um in on his when he was on the Bill Simmons pod. He said he thinks it's the first finals since since the 70s that does not have a household name in the finals. And by
Yeah.
household name, he means like everyone in your house, including the non-basketball fans, know who the best player is, know who a player is.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it just
exciting.
doesn't. Yeah, it's if you just look at the last finals, it's always had a top three, top five player. The entire 2010s had LeBron. The entire 80s had Bird and Magic. All the 90s had Jordan. And it just this doesn't happen. We get one team like this sometimes. We don't get two. And it's a showing you about the way the league works because this finals does have the MVP in it. And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, like the MVP of the league is in the finals. Like
It's true.
it's
I think it's also when you look back from the 80s until now, yes, every finals had a household name, but it's also because all the best players in the league were very spread out. Okay. So the chances of you having a household name were very, very high. Now, if the Lakers and I'm trying to think of another team that has, if the Lakers and Suns and Warriors don't make it to the finals, it's three teams. Now you don't have a household name. There's nothing you can do about it. You don't have a household name because all those guys are now out, right? But back in the 2000s, there were so many different teams that made like the 2000s had a nice spread of finals teams that made it, and every single team had a household name except for maybe the Pistons.
but they played the
So
Lakers, meaning it was the
but they
Pistons.
played the Lakers, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
so, yeah. I mean, this finals, either team doesn't have a household name.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's just good. It's good for basketball. I think it's a good it's good for basketball because there have been seasons recently where like teams like the Pacers or the Thunders have made it to the finals, but because they evidently lost to that super team, the rest of the league looked at them and said, okay, like it's nice that you did what you did, but like if we want to win, we need to, trade our entire future for stars now. But because of this year, whichever team wins, the rest of the league is going to look at that and say, okay, we need to do what they did. We need to wait. We need to be patient. It's okay to not win next year. It's okay to keep our draft picks. It's okay to not trade our stars and our wings, just because and trust the process, a real process.
I love it. Zach, I want to do an exercise with you. The
Let's
Nets,
do it.
the Net, you're a Net fan.
Big
The,
net fan.
the Nets are not very good.
No, really bad.
Is there anyone on the Nets right now, ignoring contracts, okay, or just talent for talent? Is there a net you would say, I don't want to trade him for TJ McConnell?
Yeah, I wouldn't trade Nick Claxton for TJ McConnell. I mean,
Really? I think I would.
I look,
I think TJ McConnell is
I
criminally underrated.
I don't get me wrong. I love TJ McConnell, and every game I've ever watched him play, he's always awesome. Okay, and he always gives you way more value than the amount of minutes that he's in than what it should be. That being said, as a Net fan, I'm not going to say that I would trade literally anyone on the Nets team for TJ McConnell. I mean, we're pretty much as horrible as we've ever been. Maybe not that 0-18 season, but like we just have nothing. We have draft picks, but that's about it. But our only two real guys that we can get some legitimate value for are Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson. You can't just give them up for TJ McConnell. It just wouldn't happen.
All right. All right, Zach, before we
Yeah.
go,
So
you're a draft guy. Give me one thing you're very excited about the draft. The draft isn't coming out. One thing you're pumped for, one storyline. Don't tell me Cooper Flag. Like we all know about Cooper Flag. Give me something I'm not thinking of.
no, no, no. So I'll give you two things. It's something I mean, things that people have been talking about anyway. I'm not talking, deep into the first round or early second round, still top 10 stuff. But the same way that, you've had people in draft classes that if they weren't part of that draft class, they would be clear, generational talents. Cooper Flag's the number one pick, okay? But you have Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper that are two of the most talented basketball players, high school and college, that I've ever seen. And they went to go play in Rutgers, which kind of like
Right.
didn't ruin their stock because they're still projected to go 2 and 3. But because they played at Rutgers, they didn't get much, screen time.
Mhm.
No one really
But
saw what they were
Bailey is
doing.
getting
Nobody
no
really paid
screen
attention
time.
to it much. Right. And he's also not going and doing anything, which
That's what I'm
is
saying. Bailey's getting even less
right.
screen time than ever.
Right. No, I'm saying I don't like their attitude. I don't like his attitude. Don't get me wrong. I don't miss people, but in terms of just basketball talent, I think both of them are going to be unbelievable. And I think that no one's really paying attention to that. I mean, no one. I'm saying like the casuals that all know about Cooper Flag. And I think that this is going to be a Zion and John Morant situation where like you're Cooper Flag, everyone expects to be a generational talent, but I do legitimately think that these two guys are going to be definite multi-time all-stars in the future. So that's one.
Wait, just one follow-up on that. Is
Yeah.
do you think would you be shocked if Edgecombe goes before Bailey?
Yeah. I mean, not now. I think a lot of teams, like for instance, he said he's not going to work out for the Sixers, right? And the Sixers have the third pick.
The Sixers are
So
going to trade that pick, I think. Like,
right. So I mean,
I don't
look,
know
I think they're going to trade the
what
pick too. But
happened.
if for whatever reason the Sixers decide to go with the third pick, I can see them taking Edgecombe before just because they don't like the fact that Bailey has an attitude issue.
Right.
But talent wise, if it was a regular team that the only thing they were deciding on was talent, I'd be very surprised if Edgecombe went over Ace Bailey. Like he could be a first pick in a draft when you don't
Mhm.
have a guy like Cooper Flag there. He would have been last year's first pick.
All right, what's point number 2?
Point number two, and this is as a Duke fan as well. You got I never pronounce his name right, but I think it's Kaman Malawak or Malawach. Okay, whatever. He is so physically impressive, the same way that Mark Williams was, and the same way that Derek Lively was, in that he doesn't really know how to play basketball. Like he only learned a couple of years ago. Okay. But because of how enormous he is, he will make any team. Okay, he'll make any team that already has like um, a nice, 1 and 2 piece. He can make them a legitimate contender. And it's the same thing as Mark Williams, but Mark Williams doesn't have any knees.
Mhm.
But like when everyone found out the Lakers were getting Mark Williams, everyone freaked out. Here they got their center, they got their big guy. He's going to take, and
I
it's
think that
true
would have
because
really helped them in the playoffs.
for sure. And this guy is literally Mark Williams, same height, same wingspan, same everything, but he hasn't gotten injured yet.
All
So it's like
right.
you're literally getting a fresh new Mark Williams. And I think that any team that like in that 6 to 10 spot, if he drops to 10, I think that all of those teams are going to regret it 5 years from now.
I like it. Uh,
So
that was the daily
yeah,
basketball recap in 15 minutes or less. I want to thank you, Zach, for co-hosting, for coming
great being
on.
here.
Much appreciated. I want to thank you, Max, for producing the video and the audio today. And I want to thank you for listening.